Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot more than meets the eye going on. The first thing I noticed this morning is that CNBC seems to be turning on some of these Bitcoin people a little bit. But I want you to understand, what you see on the surface is not, I repeat, not what's really going on. Listen to this. This is Perry Ann Boring from the Chamber of Digital Commerce.
You explain how a policymaker should think about why all of these ransomware attacks are using cryptocurrency?
Yeah, look, what we saw this week in the...
All right, now the first thing I want to point out is what he's not saying is that all attacks that have happened in history or the last 100 years have been using cash. So it's really a stupid narrative that he's going with. But the point is that he's trying to attack Bitcoin, and I think it's for a reason. CNBC's turning on these guys.
Pipeline is a clear demonstration that Bitcoin is not the currency of choice for criminals. The United Nations estimates that between 2 and 5% of global GDP, that's about $4 trillion, is connected to illicit activity and money laundering. Last year in 2020, less than 1% of all crypto transactions, or less than $10 billion,
But I will tell you that 90% at least, and I'm making up the numbers, but of ransomware attacks, at least over the last several months, have used crypto. So we can talk about money laundering and other things, and I agree if you look at it in some kind of other way. But let's talk about the ransomware attacks on companies today.
Yeah, and thank God they did, because the DOJ was able to track and trace those transactions.
Exactly, because I believe, I don't know which government, but they created it to be trackable. That's why all the world's a stage. What you're watching is a freaking narrative. It's a game going on.
And ultimately, we're able to seize that money and are putting a stop to this. What if they had used fiat? What if they used paper money or an analog channel? Do you think we would be where we are today? Absolutely not.
I don't think we'd be where we are today, because I don't think you'd be able to carry enough briefcases of cash to do it.
Well, that's the whole point, man. That's the reason they created this. I believe they created it not just to catch criminals. I believe they created Bitcoin as the first thing to catch a lot of nefarious money, but also as a net to bring in everyone. That's why they made it a libertarian movement. I'm convinced of it. Now, I can't prove that. That's having spent 8+ years around this and seen plenty of strange goings on. Now, then they get a hold of her again. Let's see. I think this is. Let me make sure. Now, this part is just mind-boggling.
We've seen sort of a wild move in Bitcoin, and I'm curious what your take is, both on what we just heard about what's happening in China, but also what we're hearing about what's happening in El Salvador. Is that a credentializing mechanism, or is that something that says, okay, hold on here?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been a very exciting week. I just came back from Miami, where this announcement was first made about El Salvador making Bitcoin legal tender. We now have our first country that's really embracing this in this way. They're going to be the first of many. Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Fed, in March of this year, stated that Bitcoin is more of a substitute for gold than the dollar. So what does that mean? Well, central banks around the world are holding the dollar as a reserve asset, and they're also holding gold as a reserve asset. Then the next logical step is we will see central banks substituting gold for Bitcoin for gold. So the question you should be asking, who's going to be the first central bank to do that? And eventually all these dominoes are going to fall, and what we're going to see is Bitcoin becoming a reserve asset.
Okay. Now, I'm convinced, and I've seen enough. Listen, I've told you, and I'm going to show you all in this video, I am convinced that these people have been running a marketing shell game. Look over here at Bitcoin. Now, I am not saying that Bitcoin is not going to exist, but what I am telling you, it's not going to exist as it is, because Perry Ann Boring and all of them know all of the problems with Bitcoin. And I'm going to show you what is going to happen. It's not going to be Bitcoin standing out there by itself. Watch this. First, I want to show you this. Perry Ann Boring's with the Chamber of Digital Commerce. She started as an intern at the White House, if that tells you anything. Then she was in the I think the House of Representatives. She worked with a Senate, a congressperson or something like that. Anyway, I've shown you her resume before. What I want to show you is what I was talking about earlier this week. When I was at the Bitcoin conference, this was the most important man there, Chris Giancarlo, and he's on the board of advisors of the Chamber of Digital Commerce. But if you look at who else is there, Blythe Masters. Blythe Masters is the woman who created the credit default swaps at JP Morgan, later went into the crypto space after she cleaned up her own mess, right? Supposedly. James Robinson, early investor in Ripple. Don Tapscott has been to the Swell conference. David Treat, Accenture's an early investor in Ripple. He's also on the Digital Dollar Project with Chris Giancarlo, okay? As you go down, this is Mark Wetjen. He's with the CFTC. He took the place of, I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name, but anyway, he took the place of that guy, and he is, this is what Chris Giancarlo was the head of the CFTC. Also, this Don Wilson guy here, who's on the Chamber of Digital Commerce Advisory Board, he is also, I think, quote me, hold on, I'll find him. I think he's in the Digital Dollar Project as well. These are not coincidences, folks. I'm almost positive that he's on this list. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see. Fred Wilson. Don Wilson, that was his name. So there he is right there. He's on the Chamber of Digital Commerce, and he's on the Digital Dollar Project, okay? It's not a coincidence that the CFTC guy is here, because this has everything to do with the DTCC. Did I say that right? I always forget. DTCC, I believe. Anyway, so moving along, this is the Digital Dollar Project, and I want to pound the point home. It's never been about Bitcoin unless you fix the problems. But I've always believed they're going to fix the problems of not just Bitcoin, but Ethereum and the others by putting them on something like Stellar, okay? And XRP will be the bridge. So this is from a meeting at the IMF way back when. That, I believe, is Jeremy Allaire. That's Ryan Zagone from Ripple. That's Christine Lagarde. That's Ross Leckow, who's the general counsel for the IMF, who I'll show you in a bit. But let's drive the point home. First, that's Ross Leckow. That's Ryan Zagone. This is my favorite clip from Ryan Zagone. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but just the part where he says proof of work doesn't work.
You might still use proof of work.
Great. But invite Ryan and Desiree. I don't know if you would like to comment on this as well. But Ryan, go ahead.
Proof of work doesn't work. Proof of work doesn't work. It's been widely...
Ryan, proof of work's been working.
Let me finish. Proof of work doesn't work.
Let him finish, please.
And in the early days of Bitcoin, there was a whole group of developers that broke off to create other assets, XRP being one of them, that doesn't use mining, that's cheaper from an energy perspective than Visa, and already scales to 1,500 transactions a second. A lot of these problems have already been solved.
Okay, so that's a fact. Proof of work doesn't work. If you think Perry Ann Boring doesn't know that, then I've got my igloo still for sale over here in South Georgia. Now, Esoteric XRP had tweeted this out on March 29, 2021. Brian Brooks' interview with Jeremy Allaire, who was in that picture. You know, when you and I worked on the most important stablecoin project in the world, remember, USDC, which was the stablecoin created by Circle that Jeremy Allaire is the CEO of. It operates on Stellar and Algorand networks. Remember, Algorand was hatched in MIT, where Gary Gensler was. Visa will use it. Fed will use it. MIT, ALGO. Things are happening. XLM, ALGO, XRP, the bridge, okay? If you go down here, this guy says, but Visa said it would run on Ethereum. Initial test was on Ethereum. Scaling solution requires XLM, ALGO. And then he says, Yeah, it was an initial testing using ETH. The Fed stated it's testing 2 CBDC prototypes in July. Remember, David Schwartz and CBs will not risk using only one network. If Sol is part of this, then USDC could ride on a combo of XRP, XLM, ALGO, Sol, all currently working on scaling solutions. So the point here, folks, is these technologies that are light years ahead of what Bitcoin and all these proof of work things are, these are the protocols that the Bitcoins and the Ethereums are going to be put on. Now, Ethereum's going to go to proof of stake, which I don't even think that's going to work. But in order for them to scale, they're going to be put on these. Just like the reason he did USDC on Stellar is because it's proof of work. It was built on Ethereum from what I recall. Now it's on Stellar. This is not a coincidence, okay? Now that you've seen that Algorand is in this mix, okay, do you think it's a coincidence that Brad Garlinghouse is palling around with 2 Algorand guys in Miami? No, because you know, if you listen to this channel, there are no coincidences. Then we have this from @Dave6971. They're making a big old deal out of this right now. El Salvador becomes first country to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender after passing law. Well, do you remember this? I do. This is when Brad Garlinghouse was on stage back in, 2018 or 19 with Ross Lecco of the IMF. There was a question, and they were asking, could the IMF ever hold crypto assets? Ross answers the question. Listen.
Yeah. IMF. Do you see IMF holding crypto assets in the future? I did not put that up there.
Remember, I'm from the legal department. I'm supposed to be very conservative about these things. I don't want to go into great details about
Maybe
the
I should take what the IMF is going to do. I think we stunned Ross into silence with that one.
For that to happen, okay, under the current legal framework, some country would have to use a crypto asset as its currency.
IMF, do you see?
Did El Salvador just take one for the entire crypto team? That's my question. Did they just open the door for the scalable digital assets that Bitcoin can take a ride on, and for all of crypto? Did this little small country El Salvador just play the game for everyone? That's my question. All right. And then there was this going around yesterday, and a lot of people don't know. This was an Anthony Pompliano tweet from back August 31st of 2017. If you think Bitcoin went on a tear once CNBC and institutional investors learned about it, just wait till they discover Ripple, XRP. Now, this is when everything was pumping, and he was talking about this. He says, to be clear, I was specifically referring to the bank coin narrative and how they would gravitate towards promoting that to their bank-heavy audience. It eventually happened as I predicted, and I mentioned how insane it was a few months later. Okay, so he's trying to cover his tracks, but here's the point, and I think I made the point. Right here, I retweeted this tweet, and I said, listen, influencers are born one of 2 ways, and I've seen this. Look, you go to these conferences, and you talk to these different people that talk to some of these influencers. Some of them, and I'm not saying he is, I'm just saying some of them are about as plastic gets. You have 2 groups of influencers. Some are just, they locked onto this and they just were sitting at home like I did, or like many of the YouTubers did, and they just started talking about this stuff because it's what they're into, and it turned into a thing. But then there are some that are paid actors. I've told you for a long time, Anthony Pompliano didn't create this thing out of thin air. He didn't just he's been backed by major people, the marketing arm of Bitcoin. He's been backed for a long time. It's not a coincidence that all these people are paraded in to do interviews on his thing. I've tried before. If you try to go back and track back what was his first thing he ever did, that's an interesting exercise. What was the first podcast he ever did? How did it all start? I contend that it started because a group of executives in a room said, hey, this young guy would be a great face man. That's the difference. And my point in telling you all of that is that this guy, you go in a room and you say, okay, now you're going to market this. He's going to do it. He's going to hop too, which is why he'll tell the truth about it one day and then act like he doesn't know what you're talking about. This is in 2017. And then when Brad Garlinghouse, he interviewed with him, he acted like he did. Well, why wouldn't you just use Bitcoin? I've never said that Anthony Pompliano is dumb. I just know he's a marketing guy, and he does as he's told. That's what I know about him. Now, you don't need to take my word for what they really think of Bitcoin as it is. This is Lagarde. This is Christine Lagarde from what was the IMF, and then she moved to the European Central Bank, but she's one of them. She's one of them that's going to make or break this whole thing. Listen.
What is fascinating about this, let's call it the Bitcoin movements, because there are other cryptocurrencies as well, is the technology that is underneath. This distributed ledger technology that guarantees identification, traceability, authentication of transactions without interference, without intermediation. I think that was the dream of the original Bitcoin inventors. That's fascinating, and that could be used in multiple circumstances, tracing transactions, land registry, you just name it. And some central banks are looking at it to use for their own virtual currency. So that's the interesting aspect of it. The not so interesting aspect of it is that the anonymity of it is likely to facilitate.
You see where this is going? It's going to have to go through a network that has the KYC and all the stuff handled.
Money laundering, dark money moving around, and things that no one is happy about if we're looking for financial stability and transparency of financial transactions. So that's the dark side. I would add that the Bitcoin's mining, which is this accelerated and augmented use of computers to actually determine the value and incentivize the functioning of the mechanism, is energy
intensive.
Angry.
Yeah.
And, we figure that in 2018, if it continues, that system will actually consume as much electricity as Argentina. That's big, and it's, in times of climate change and, when we look at how much coal is being used in some Chinese provinces to actually mine Bitcoins, it's a big concern.
But if a regulated cryptocurrency becomes the future, do you see it as being accepted as part of, the currency landscape we currently have?
I think remember the dot-com boom. We saw lots of IPOs. I remember those youngsters coming and saying, I want to open shops in 10 countries and I want to be quoted on the New York stock market. Many of those just went away, right, and were buried. But
she just told you Bitcoin goes away. And she's followed by Larry Fink, who's head of digital assets over at BlackRock, came from Ripple, or the guy that used to be. That's Robbie Mitchnick, as a by the way. Now, here's a picture of okay, so here's the old picture of where it had of the IMF. It had Brad Garlinghouse, Ross Leckow. That's Jesse Chang, who was with Ripple and then went to the IMF. Christine Lagarde, and then you got this guy, Rob Palatnik, Managing Director and Chief Technology Architect at DTCC. Well, I remember him because earlier this week I was talking about him. He is also at the Digital Dollar Project, right? If I can find him. Where is he? He's right here. That's him. So, and then of course Sheila Warren's there. She was at Ripple's Swell. And then finally, I wanted to finish this video up with this. Watch the beginning of this and then I'll make my point.
So fintech startup Marqeta will make its Wall Street debut today. The company pricing 45 million shares at $27 each. It's above the target range.
I'm not going to play you the interview. I just wanted to make a point here. Marqeta is going IPO at $27 a share. Part of the reason I keep telling you that Link2 is such an opportunity, if you're an accredited investor, is that this time's different from the dot-com boom. This time, we can invest in digital assets. And if you're accredited, you can also invest in private equity, the picks and the shovels, folks. That is the way that you diversify in this space. Now, and they've got a literal button on here, get accredited, so you can go and apply and all that. But you can see Marqeta was on the platform. So now there's a liquidity event. So what that means is the people that bought Marqeta on this platform, now that it's going IPO, they will literally be able to sell or continue to hold, as it's a public company, their Marqeta stock. How cool is that? But the point is that here, when you're investing here, you're only investing with accredited investors, which means that you get to invest way before the 90% of the rest of the population has a chance to invest in it. That's a big deal. That's how the big boys have made money that's how the rich get rich and stay rich. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button. Tell your friends and family that Marqeta is going IPO, and they were on the Link 2 platform.